Okay, just a tad. So.
Like this?
Yeah, that'll be perfect. Yeah. Thanks. Should we begin with our Shanti Mantra? Sahana vavatu Sahano bhunaktu Sahaviryam karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu Ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So, how was practice last fortnight?
Okay.
Good? Okay. So, I just did this so you can review for yourselves. And I thought today I'll start with some preliminaries. I seem never to get beyond the preliminaries. But the truth is, I'm saying this from my own experience, of course, which is that whenever we encounter some obstacle in practice, it always traces back to something in the basics that was neglected. And it takes some time to realize that. And then what you end up doing is you're cycling through this whole process. So it is sort of, if you have a very hard stone and you make a scratch, the beginning of the scratch is the preliminaries we talked about. Then we talked about pranayama, we'll talk more about meditation today. And yesterday I not yesterday, the last meeting, I showed you the whole stroke from beginning to end. But obviously in one stroke it's not going to happen, right? So we keep doing it again. But every time we do it, some new experience will come up, which is why I say reflect on the experiences, write down, observe what you're experiencing, and try to get a question from that. That's the most practical way to keep deepening the groove further.
Like this morning I was doing sadhana, so I usually program it for 20 minutes. About 10-12 minutes later, I had like so many thoughts, so I do it in Anika's room.
Mm-hmm.
So I quickly grabbed paper and I started to write, and it kind of helps, because otherwise what happens is I keep thinking, oh, these are the thoughts, I need to remember them. So you can't reach that peaceful state. And
Sure. Yes.
Which has been happening for the last 2-3 times.
Okay. Yeah. So at the end of the day, today I had a nice way of putting this, I thought, which is, what is yoga all about? We're only going to change your way of seeing. Okay? So, in some sense, the external world is not going to change, nor is anyone else going to see any changes, perhaps even in you. But your way of seeing is going to change. That is the main. That's why I don't emphasize this asanas, all those karmas, kriyas, they are all there. But it has to change your perception of life completely. That's the whole purpose. So it has to change the way of seeing. So when we do this stroke from the beginning to the end, we encounter some difficulties, and if you're able to correlate that difficulty to something in the preliminary that was lacking, you'll make very quick progress. So I'm going to go over the preliminaries now, and then that might help you. So what do I mean by preliminaries? Actually, I wanted to write, there's an article stub, atha, in the website, which I want to fill out. Everything starts with atha, now. And these sages and rishis in the old days who wrote these things, they were talking to an audience that had a certain preparation. Right? But in our modern life, we've forgotten what those preparations are. So it's always very useful to review those preparations. Mm-hmm. So now we look at 3 texts. Hatha Yoga, we looked at Hatha Yoga Pradipika, right? Then Raja Yoga, we refer to Yoga Sutra. And then finally for Advaita Vedanta, there is a text called Tattva Bodha that Adi Shankaracharya wrote. It is the most beautiful, fundamental, short explanation of everything. Okay? So I will see if I have a Devanagari version, but I don't have a translation of it. But I'll try to give you translations little by little as we go along. But it is, in my opinion, the most condensed primer for this thing. So today what I want to do is go through the preliminaries in each of these. We have already done the ones from Hatha Yoga. Okay? If you may remember, we talked about qualities by which yoga succeeds and those by which it perishes. Now, do you recall any of them? Some of them?
I just had a quick question. When you say atha, the translation or the meaning of that would be
now.
Now.
Right. So now meaning after something has happened before, right? And that is the preparation, right? Now, there is also one more thing to keep in mind. We prepare, but not all the students of even these rishis and sages were fully prepared, because then if they were fully prepared, it would be like an instant the realization would happen. So we understand that the preparation is inadequate to begin with, but knowing why that preparation was important is a very significant step in sadhana. Not ignoring the importance of that preparation. And the more you do this, last time we also talked about Shakti and Kundalini. You see, let me give you an example of why the preparation is important. You, now 2 of you are ladies, but Federico might be interested, not that women are not interested in audio amplification. This is something that young guys like very much, right? So you have a CD player or some source, then you have an amplifier, right? What is Kundalini doing? It basically makes the amplification 10 times, 1,000 times, 100,000 times, right? Now suppose in your source music, there is some distortion. What will happen when you amplify? You see what I'm saying? Suppose you're running at low level, you may have some positive aspects and negative aspects in your personality or whatever it is. And they'll have some balance and you've attained some equilibrium with society or whatever. Tomorrow if you turn up the power 100,000 times, not only will the good things get amplified, but also the deficiencies will get amplified, right? So if you don't purify early enough, it can be disastrous if the balance shifts. Do you see what I'm trying to say? That's why, again, preparation is very important. That's why I keep emphasizing this. Okay? So let's go through does anyone remember, give me one quality by which yoga succeeds?
Enthusiasm, bravery, patience, persistence.
Yes.
ICF essential. No over socializing. Firm determination.
So what I'm saying is, I would like you to internalize one of them, say. Whichever one you think is most important to you. Pick one. Right? And then, before you sit in sadhana also, bring these preparatory aspects to your mind. It'll help. It'll actually make the sadhana go better that instant. So he writes, so utsahat, sahasat, dhairyat, tattvajnanat, nischayat, janasanga parityagat. You got all of them, right? Now, the ones by which it perishes.
Over-socializing.
Over-socializing. There you go. The first one, overeating. Atyaharaha, prajalpaha, gossiping, prayasaha, unnecessary exertions. Then niyamagraha, violating the niyamas, regulations. Laulyam, which is restlessness. And finally, janasanga, by socializing, over-socializing. So, I'm not saying that you need to memorize them like a lesson, but you will see on a day that you didn't eat properly, how the sadhana did not work as well. So then I'm saying it will become internalized. It is not only memorizing, but making it a part of you. I know some days that if I'm forced to be in very social situations, that day it may take a little longer to, get to the place where you want to get. These are just facts. There's no getting around them, right? So I want these principles to live for you. They shouldn't be something dead in a book that you look up. It should become a living part of you every day, and then the choices you make will be increasingly more well-informed, right? Okay, now let's look at Raja Yoga. Now, Hatha Yoga is, remember, starting with the physical aspects. So as we go through these preparations, you'll see that the preparations themselves become more and more subtle, from Hatha to Raja to Advaita. So let's look at Raja Yoga. There we have Yama and Niyama, right? So there are 5 Yamas, right? Did we talk about Yama and Niyama? I think we did, right? Yeah. Right. Can you give me 1 Yama and 1 Niyama?
I used to remember them.
The first one is very easy. Ahimsa. Just non-harming. Right? Ahimsa, Satya, truth. Asteya, not stealing. Brahmacharya, continence. Aparigraha, not grasping. And again, when we go through our daily routine, if you can just recall and then correlate. The days that you are having these feelings, sadhana goes very well. The days where one of them is a little off balance, it doesn't go so well. And then that will set the connection. So there's a reason for it. The point is, you don't memorize them because they're there in the book, but because they actually impact your practice. Right? Then niyamas are our personal regulations. Right? Shaucha, purity. Now their purity of body and mind. I mean, you all know that if you wash your legs and hands before sitting down, right? If you've cleaned yourself, it's better, right? But then there is also mental purity. If the mind is agitated about something in the day, a particular event, incident, that also creates impediments. Shaucha. Santosha. Santosha is contentment. So I want to ask you, what is the ultimate pleasure? What is the ultimate state of happiness that one can have in the external world? What will give ultimate happiness?
To know the purpose of life, the larger truth.
That's true. And actually contentment. So if you're content, then you're ultimately happy.
Having no desire.
Right. So, but even on a smaller level, on a lower level, just content with, okay, this is my situation right now, this is the state of my sadhana, this is the state of my knowledge, I'm going to go forward, I know the purpose, like you say, but I'm not discomfited by anything right now. Nothing majorly upsets me. Santosha. Tapas is austerity, and we'll talk more about tapas. Now, tapas can be very dangerous and misleading because especially in India, there's a lot of torturing yourself tapas, like, and that is not at all recommended in this path. The ultimate tapas is actually the restraint of mind and senses. If you can restrain your mind and senses, you're performing the ultimate tapas, regardless of what else you're doing. From that will then stem all the other tapas, if you know what I mean. But if you needlessly are harming yourself by starving yourself, or driving a pin through your hand, or lying on a bed of nails, these are not productive of the vision that you seek, strictly speaking. It is true that when yogis reach the ultimate state, they are immune to those things. But one is not necessary to get to the other, is what I'm saying. One can actually be counterproductive if the direction is not set correctly, right? Svadhyaya, I think you are all doing, is studying on your own, self-study of the path, the correct Vedanta Vakyadishu. And then Svadhyaya, Ishvara Pranidhana, surrendering to the ultimate source, Ishvara, that surrender. So that is so far Hatha Yoga. So already do you see between Raja Yoga and Hatha Yoga there is a slightly more subtle set of, the preparation is slightly harder, right? It's not as obvious. You see, you're pulling it. Now we'll come to Vedanta. Now you will see the real preparation that is needed. So what Adi Shankaracharya says in both Tattva Bodha and also in Viveka Chudamani Aparokshana Bhuti, he talks about something called Sadhana Chatushtaya. Chatushtaya is 4. The fourfold sadhana. What is this fourfold sadhana? Today I want to talk about that. So the first one is called Vivekam. Vivekam roughly would translate as discrimination in common parlance. But in Vedanta it has a very, very, very specific meaning. And it is called Nitya Vastu Viveka. Nitya means eternal. Anitya is transient. So the discrimination between what is eternal and what is transient is true discrimination. Right? Now, obviously that's a very high bar to set. Right? Even so, whether one attains that discrimination instantaneously or in a lifetime, along the way other kinds of discrimination are important. So everything that we do, we can exercise some discrimination. So what is the lower discrimination that one can exercise? And that's where this gunas we talked about comes in. Sattva, Rajas, Tamas. The lower discrimination is exercising discrimination based on the gunas. Okay? So let's take any thought. Okay? Because thought precedes action. Right? So that thought, which comes from the feeling that the same principle is in all of us, is a sattvic thought. Okay? If you have that thought and you interact with somebody, even if on surface there may be some friction or opposition, the pervasion of that thought will improve your behavior towards them. Right? So that is emphasized in Bhagavad Gita, where Sri Krishna talks about the gunas. In the last 3-4 chapters, there are many references to the gunas. And one of them, that action and thought, he talks how it comes from the 3 gunas. Right? That thought that comes thinking that everyone is different from me is a rajasic thought. Okay? Tamasic thought is the worst kind of thought, where the knowledge of the subject is just confined to to the object itself, whatever you're considering, and it is obviously something we don't want to fall prey to. Right? So sattvic thought, so even though your vivekam may not be of the eternal and transient right now, immediately, the beginning of discrimination comes with how we think. Right? Then how do we act? How should one act? Those actions that are done with the good of others in mind are called sattvic actions. Right? Those which are done purely for personal benefit would stem from a rajasic thought process. Right? So this is how, in the external life, one has to start cultivating vivekam, so that the whole experience veers towards the final discrimination. Right? So we talked about thought, we talked about action. And then I think those two should suffice for as far as the discussion of discrimination goes, Vivekam, for the moment. I'm not saying that you should not practice the ultimate discrimination, and that should be practiced in sadhana. So when you observe something in your practice, meditational practice, you have to apply this discrimination. Is this a true self or is this not? And how will you know the true self?
Can you say that again?
So in meditation, so I talked about the thought and action was for the external world. So we are talking about discrimination. So in order to cultivate the ultimate discrimination of eternal and transient, you have to have discrimination at certain lower levels. What you read, what you speak, how you act, right? So we've covered some of that, right? Then I'm saying with the ultimate discrimination you have to cultivate in meditation. So suppose you sit in meditation and tomorrow you have an experience, whatever it be. How will you decide if this is eternal, the true self, or the transient? Do you remember I sent you an email some time ago? I said there are 3 characteristics. One is it will be fearless. It will be a fearless state. 2 is it's non-dual. There will be no other, no object. And 3 is there will be no questions.
Why?
If you don't have these 3, it's not the true self. It's a very useful litmus test, right? You sit in, because we just have to keep drilling through. And it's okay. There will be times when you have dramatically startling experiences. People talk about lights and all these things are there. But you should be unwavering like Arjuna.
That's what the first one was. The first one was
No object.
no.
Object.
Oh, okay.
So it will be non-dual.
This is the second, no dual.
Fearless maybe is what
Okay,
it's-
fearless. Yeah, that's it.
No question,
that
no
was not
fear, no object or non-dual.
So what I'm saying is that's a guiding compass for you. If every time you sit, if that doesn't happen, you can come back, revisit, and keep moving forward. Same thing when you read teachings also. Those teachings that teach you this are the Upanishads and others. If something is not leading directly to this, you should exercise your discrimination. You can take what you can from it. If you think it's not leading to it, there's no need to, right? So
You talked about prajna.
pragya, pragya.
Pragya, yeah. That you get through shrutis.
That you get through Shruti. Yeah.
Like insights into like
Right,
today today at the end of sadhana I had like some insights, like I had like some persistent questions throughout the week, and then it just sort of through some sort of flash, not like as in not a visual or physical flash, but through a moment I just felt like I knew the answer to it, and I'll probably share that with you later.
Sure.
But
Those are very promising and encouraging, right? That's a very good, very encouraging experience, right? You're right. In the final analysis, what happens is that which is said in the Shruti is seen to be true, and that is what builds very nice conviction, then, right? Because again, we have the 3 valid ways of knowing: pratyaksha, direct experience; anumana, by inference; agamani, the scripture. So when all 3 line up, there's no doubt you checked all the 3 boxes. Okay, so vivekam. Now the second one. So I told you Shankaracharya lists 4 chatushtaya. Second is vairagyam. I'll talk about that. Third one is called Shatka Sampattihi. They are the sixfold virtues, starting with Shama. It's Shama, Dama, Uparati, Titiksha, Shraddha, Shraddha, Samadhanam. The fourth in the sadhana chatushtaym is mumukshutvam. Mumukshutvam is a desire for liberation, burning desire for liberation. Okay? So, if these four are lacking in some way, then progress is hard for the aspirant. Okay? So, we discussed Vivekam. You have to be discriminating. If you don't discriminate, you can get misled and waste a lot of time in quotes. Okay. The second one is Vairagyam. Vairagyam is a very, very good one to discuss, because I think oftentimes it's quite misunderstood. In fact, when we first started off, somebody had written in their sheet, very sensibly, that I want to be more detached. So I love to discuss this because it is such an easy trap to fall into. So first of all, we feel we are attached. Okay. Now, immediately we want the opposite. I want to be detached. That's the instinctive. But that's not the actually true reaction that you want. A yogi is neither attached nor detached. A yogi is non-attached. Non-attached is not the same as detached. Okay? Detached is somebody who's pushing something away. Attached is stuck to it. Non-attached is like a duck that goes into the water and comes out, and the water just doesn't stick to it. Right? It's like Teflon, frying on a Teflon pan. It's just non-stick. Right? It doesn't push away. It just doesn't stick. Right? Now what is the correct definition of Vairagyam? In Yoga Sutra it says, Drishta Anushravika Drishta Anushravika Vishaya Vitrishnasya Vashikara Sangya Vairagyam. So let's understand that. Drishta is seen. Anushravika is heard. Okay. So now the seeing and hearing is not just through the eyes and ears. When you go into sadhana, you will see and hear many things also in the inner realms. Right? And the key thing that it says is those also should not attach to you. The yogi should not attach to those. Okay? Drishta Anushravika Vishaya Vitrishnasya. Trishna is thirst. Vitrishna is no thirst. So the non-thirst for objects, and you can think of objects as gross objects or subtle objects or whatever it is. That non-thirst for those heard and seen objects, and having complete mastery of that. Vashikara. Vashikara is something that vashmyana. It's in your control. That complete mastery is called Vairagyam. Right? So of course first we have to start with Vairagyam in the external world. Right? But I'm pointing this out because in meditation often people can get very attracted to certain experiences in meditation itself. Right? In fact, as you go deeper and deeper, there will be some very pleasurable experiences in meditation. Right? Even the sticking to that is an obstacle to the final realization. That's actually quite hard I'm talking to you guys because you are all meditators. In a general thing, if you tell somebody, there you're talking mainly about attachment in the external world. But there's attachment in the internal states also that has to be guarded against and observed. And then, so now, this is a very good question. Why should you get unattached, non-attached? Why should you be non-attached? Or what will make you non-attached?
The goal that you have to achieve ultimate liberation.
Yes, that's very good. That's a very good answer. But let's say that it's hard. So attachment is there, right? And we want this goal, and okay, you put the effort. But if the effort is relaxed, then that means it will come back, right? You see what I'm trying to say? So this is where in Bhagavad Gita and Shankara Bhashyam is very useful. It's only the knowledge of the truth that is liberating. and I'll try to explain this to you by analogy. So let's say we play a game. You guys have played that snakes and ladders, chutes and ladders game, right? So I played with kids. Let's say that you are playing with 2-3 other people. And then these chutes and ladders, they come with these little figurines. That is, this is your piece, right? So the piece plays, you go up the chute, you win, you lose. Okay. Now, if you got very attached to the piece, okay, and then you started fighting with the other player because, you experience these ups and downs, what would you say to the kids who are playing like that? You would say, listen, you're children, you're not seeing the point. This is the same thing that's happening in real life. We got attached to these pieces, right? Too attached. And it's a game, right? The moment somebody can, through meditation, open up the game, what will your reaction be? You'll be unattached without sorrow, without any effort. Because you'll see it's a game. You will actually be inclined to laugh a little bit. That is the purpose of meditation. So Vairagyam has to come from that knowledge. That's why Sri Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, in the end all actions culminate in knowledge. What does he mean by that? Once you have the knowledge, then it's like knowing the magic of the game. Right? Then it will be effortless. But I'm not saying that Kshitija is right. You are putting effort. You should put effort. It's very good. It's absolutely right. You should keep the goal in mind. But keep in mind that eventually when that realization dawns, it will be effortless. And that will be the true sign of knowing that... because what happens is, we all get attached. And the first time when we get disappointed, usually why does some sort of vairagyam start? Because you do something, you're attached to it, you get disappointed, right? Then you think, this thing is not what it's cut out to be, there's something more to this, so I probably shouldn't have got attached in the first place, right? But at the same time, you can also have pleasurable experiences through attachment, right? So then if one doesn't see the real nature of things, then the pleasurable experience will draw you back, right? And there's nothing wrong with it. In the frame of mind that your knowledge is, there's nothing wrong in going back. So why should you reject? The reason you should reject is, a yogi finally sees that both the pleasurable and the painful experiences are actually all painful. In a very deep sense. And that is because the yogi sees that these pleasurable experiences also create those samskaras, those deep grooves in your consciousness that lead you back to them, right? And that pleasurable experience can never be sustaining. It can never be eternal, right? It is finite. There is no pleasurable experience I've had in this world that has been infinite and has been eternal, right? You may enjoy the time with somebody, you may enjoy eating something, you may enjoy a movie, but it is not going to last forever. You know it. You know it deep down inside, right? Once you know it, right, then what happens is, you're not running away to meditation as an escape hatch, but you're pursuing this because you know very, very clearly that, yes, this is interesting for a while, but it's not going to lead me to that path. And the rejection that I felt, so these two are what are called the two of the 5 fundamental kleshas. Klesha is taint or affliction or coloring in yoga. So they are raga and dvesha. Raga is attraction, dvesha is rejection. Why does raga arise? Raga arises when you have sukha. When you have pleasure, you have attraction, you want to repeat it. When you have unpleasant experience or dukkha, you have rejection, dvesha. So this binary thing is a characteristic of all life experience. Right? So as one practices and you see whether you accept the theories of reincarnation or you see them for yourself, we all know, even from our daily life, that if you do something and you like it, you're bound to repeat it again. If you do something and you don't like it, you're bound to run away from it. Right? So what the yogi realizes is that because of this endless duality, flip-flopping, that all experience at some level is fundamentally painful because it does not lead to any greater knowledge of the true reality.
I want to ask you, with the previous example with the game, were you seeing that suddenly in the flash you see the trick, as to say, of the whole game? Is it the point?
Yes.
Okay.
Right.
Okay. And these both pleasurable and unpleasurable things are simply binding you to the game. Without the possibility of somehow almost seeing the focus pocus of the game.
Yes.
Okay.
Right. And that's a very good point. The hocus pocus, because Maya, which in now what is called Prakriti in yoga, is the three gunas, Sattva, Rajas, Tamas. It is this play that is keeping us entertained for so long. Now in Vedanta it's called Maya, and Maya is very powerful. It's an extremely strong power, unimaginably strong. So imagine if a magician was so good that he could deceive you so completely that your very sense of identity was transformed, right? That would be a very powerful magic, right? And that's what you're confronting in meditation, right? So for powerful magic, best thing is to take the side of the magician. So enlist the power also into your ranks. That is Ma Shakti. So once you surrender to her, then she will show you the entire magic, reveal the magic to you, right? So we've gone through any questions on Vairagyam, because I think that's very important in both Vivekam and Vairagyam. Does it make sense to you? Is what I'm saying making sense, or is it too abstract? Okay. Then we came to, I'm going to come back to that Shama, Dama and the sixfold virtues and go to the fourth one first, which is Mumukshutvam. Mumukshutvam is this desire for liberation, right? So I think all of you definitely have a taste of it, otherwise you would not be coming so diligently to these things. And that is a deep, somewhere in the recesses of your heart, there is a tug, and it says, I need to know this. I need to be liberated. I need to know my true self. Right? That is mumuksha, that burning desire. Right? And the more intense the desire, the more rapid will be the attainment. So in Yoga Sutra at one point it says, Tivra samvegana asanna. Tivra is intense. For that person whom the desire is intense, it will be easy. Asana, it is close by. Attainment is close by. So now let's look at Shama, Dama and those characters. Those are also very important, and slowly as we go through, Shama is mental tranquility, if you will. Mano Nigraha, actually, it is a mental control and mental tranquility. Control of the mind results in Shama. Dama is control of the outward going sense organs, and this is hard, I'll tell you that. When you go through meditation, sometimes do you feel that when you come out of meditation, you're in a very peaceful state, then something through the day, it disturbs that peaceful state? Is that right? So in Bhagavad Gita, Sri Krishna has a very nice explanation. He says, just as a wind takes a boat away, Nava Imam Bhasi is how that shloka ends. As the wind takes the boat away, something in the world takes the mind away, right? From its focus. So that's why Shama and Dama are listed as preliminaries. Control of the mind, control of the outgoing sense organs. Shama, Dama. Uparati. Uparati or Uparama is Swadharma Anushtanam. That is to be deeply established in your Swadharma. Do you recall what Swadharma is? Swadharma. What does Swa mean?
Yours.
Mine. Yeah, my dharma. What is my dharma? Now this has two interpretations. I'll help you with it a little bit. If you look at Gita, there the interpretation of Swadharma is slightly different, where there they talk about Varnashrama Dharma. That is your station in life and your time in life, what stage in life you are. But what I mean by Swadharma in this context, the way I interpret it is...
Karma? Karma?
No, it is the fundamental dharma of every conscious human being to know themselves. Okay. That is your Swadharma. The fact that you have got a human birth means something. What does it mean? You should know yourself. Now, where do all the dharmas come from? All those dharmas rotate on Swadharma. So it's like the hub of a wheel. All the other dharmas rotate on this. If you know your Swadharma, you will not be violating any of the other dharmas. Those other dharmas are constructed in the Smriti. The things written down by people like Manu that say these are how you should behave in society, to your family, blah, blah, blah. Their fulcrum is this Swadharma. On the other hand, if you don't know your Swadharma, no amount of following the other dharmas is going to really lead you to peace, or will you be following them correctly? Right? So Swadharma Anushtanam is Uparama or Uparati. That's the third one. So we did Shama, Dhamma, Uparati. Then there are three more. Titiksha. Titiksha is also a very important one. Tiksha has the feeling of like a sharpness. Titiksha really means an ability to endure opposites. Okay? Heat and cold, pleasure and pain. So what does this mean for us in sadhana? When you sit in sadhana, you sit in meditation, you must be experiencing some pains. Internal pains, right? Some discomforts, right? The point is to become indifferent to them slowly. That the focal point of, we were withdrawing inwards, right? In the exercise I showed you last time, you're withdrawing slowly inwards. As you withdraw inwards, you will feel pain, right? This ability to cultivate an indifference to that pain and keep the mind focused on the inward withdrawal is titiksha. So that is again a preliminary to doing, succeeding in sadhana. Yeah.
How does it differ from vairagyam?
Vairagyam and titiksha, yeah, they are different. They are different. It is different from vairagyam in the sense that they are related. The reason that you actually do experience those and get attached is the root is attachment, right? So for instance, if you have bodily pain, you have bodily pain, why? Because you are attached to the body. Very simply, right? Do you see what I'm trying to say? Right? You have mental pain because you are attached to the mind, right? But the very takeaway point of titiksha is, okay, even if that pain is there, even if that temporary attachment is there, I'm going to just develop the ability in the mind to ignore it for the moment in those 20 minutes or whatever time you're sitting and focus on the goal. That's the titiksha.
So in a sense, vairagyam is somewhat deeper.
Deeper,
Close
yes.
to the root of it.
That's right. You're right. So that's a good question, actually. That's a very good question. I hadn't considered the two together. So thanks. So titiksha, then shraddha and samadhan. Shraddha we've talked about before. Do you remember? What is shraddha? Faith. And in specifically, there is a definition of it we use in Vedanta, which is Guru Vedanta Vakyadishu Vishvasaha. Vishvasa is trust, faith, in the words of Guru and the Vedanta. So whether you take Adi Shankaracharya as the Guru or Ramana Maharishi or Ramakrishna, their commentaries are their words, their bhashyams. And also the Upanishads. What is said in the Upanishads, one should have faith in that. That Shraddha is important. And finally, Samadhanam. Samadhanam is basically it's Chitta Ekagratam. It is one-pointedness of the mind. Right? So the ability to keep the mind. These sixfold they're somewhat related. They are kind of trying to characterize different aspects of a mind or a personality, right? So Chitta Ekagrata, having that one-pointedness of mind, is Samadhanam. So with that, we've completed the tour of the preliminaries. Now, do you feel, take some time to reflect, if in your practice you encountered some difficulty and how it related to one of these? That would be a good exercise. If you can identify one, then it will be good.
Could you please help me in this?
Sure.
So, for example, okay, this week for me was quite frankly a disaster.
Okay.
Right? And it is because we had 2 deadlines for 2 grants.
Right.
Now, how to analyze it? On the one hand, you have to do this because, I mean, at least to sustain somehow the balance of life.
Sure. Definitely.
But maybe not maybe, definitely there was somewhere a loss of control, but where?
Right. So,
of course, probably it's very individual and one should look in deep into...
What you say is very true and completely expected, right? So in the beginning stages of practice, when you have important deadlines coming up, one will feel the pressure of that because the mind is still a poor thing, right? It's still trying to, it's a little baby, it's trying hard to be strong, right? So just be gentle on yourself, right?
Maybe it's a very good point not to be harsh.
Right.
Because it's a further loss of control.
That's right.
It's just
You're very good.
worse.
Very perceptive, Frederick. Excellent. So you're right. You don't want to get down that thing. Now, you could analyze a couple of things, though. One is, was it possible in any way to rearrange the schedule of one's work such that the pressure was not so intense in 1 week? That's something useful to think about.
I think at another level, I guess that's more of, if you look at a continuum of what all you need to do, I guess deadlines are just, in the bhulok, in this world. More, you just need to act now, but like if this morning I just made an observation after my sadhana, which I've sort of felt all along, yet today it was more apparent that, so I wrote, by allowing thoughts to enter the mind and gently pushing them aside, sadhana persists. So, if you can have that deliberate action of, gently pushing them aside, there's no way they'll stop coming, because right now we're at the preliminary state of sadhana. You have to, you think about your day, what you ate, what you have to do. You're still sort of in the real world. Let them come, think about them, push them aside, let them come, and then just keep pushing them and moving forward. And I guess same thing with schedules and deadlines, just they're going to be there, and you just have to, if you're conscious and deliberate about them all along, I think that sort of helps.
Let me give you one argument. So you decided to sit for 20 minutes in sadhana, right? Would thinking about the deadline help in sadhana? Either the deadline or the sadhana, neither.
Yeah.
just tell your mind that. Mind, I've sat in sadhana. I've decided to set aside the 20 minutes. Right? I'm not going to actually do the work for the deadline in this 20 minutes. So it's completely pointless to think about it in this 20 minutes.
And I guess it's also a kind of sankalpam.
Right. It's a sankalpam, right? Right. So they will intrude, you're right. In fact, see, this is the trick that one has to learn, which is if I'm going to do task A, I'm only going to do task A. I'm going to be so focused on task A that no other thing intrudes in my mind. And then task A will be completed very successfully, actually. Then I move to task B. Task B is only 1 hour later. So right now, mind don't think about task B.
Or I guess a more drastic analogy would be the telephone ringing.
Right.
You go for the telephone ringing. You may be talking to somebody about something important. You just go for
multitasking.
So.
What is that?
Multitasking,
right. And in fact, I do think that's one of the great regrettable things in our modern life, that people somehow elevate this multitasking to some sort of virtue. But in fact, it's very, very...
it takes you away from the focus.
You're much better off doing that one thing then and doing it so well, and then suddenly it will all become very simple. So hopefully that helps.
No. That's...
It's a very rational, logical thought. If I'm doing sadhana now, no amount of thinking about it is going to help that job.
Yes.
Not is it going to help sadhana.
Yeah.
So,
or if you look at it, maybe like it gives you, after sadhana you feel more empowered and calm, so maybe you catalyze the actual process of achieving that deadline in some way.
So in a sense you always keep this command center, as you say, alive.
Yes, right. Kshitija, you had something?
Yeah, I was going to say it will happen in the beginning. It's very normal to happen. It just, you have to be persistent. Whenever you realize this is happening,
Yeah,
you try to go
probably
off.
this is the persistence that you keep
So,
on
I mean,
going
thoughts
with.
will coming, but
Yeah.
at some point you will realize, oh, these unnecessary thoughts are coming. You try to say, okay, I will not do these thoughts. Again, after a few minutes, you may get these thoughts. But you have to just be persistent. And
Yeah, and
eventually,
the whole
you will able to...
settles down the whole
Yeah.
this, turbulence
I mean,
of
I
life.
don't see any others.
So
Other
I'll give
way
you an
of
explanation of that, because that's the how is meditation happening. The part that is active in meditation is buddhi, right? So remember, buddhi is the detached, non-attached, detached, observing part of the mind. Buddhi is observing in a very detached fashion. So from the standpoint of buddhi, sattvic buddhi, you observe this thought coming that says, so you can actually, this is exactly what can go through your mind. You can say, okay, mind, this tension about the deadline has arisen, okay, but it's not useful for me through the logic that we established. I'm just going to let it go and just watch it. I would say don't even try to push it. Don't push the thought away. Your thing should be like an observer watching a screen going by. The thought will rise and allow it to subside on its own, gently keeping the focus. Mind, this was not useful, the focus was to sit in sadhana.
Sometimes people are using this phrase in both Buddhism and yoga, witness consciousness. Would you equate this with Buddhi?
It is sattvic buddhi, yes.
Okay.
Right. Now there's a difference. If you say witness consciousness, there is also, so there's a standpoint of Purusha and the standpoint of sattvic buddhi. Right now you are looking at it from sattvic buddhi. Deeper when you go, you will see the difference between sattvic buddhi and Purusha. And finally, when the sattvic buddhi is so clean, it's so transparent, it will just reflect the Purusha right through, as it were, like a mirror. I mean, not like a window pane, transparent.
I remember at the end of Yoga Sutra,
Yes.
he deals with this. I was somehow following this conceptually, but of course it's very difficult to understand unless you have this experience.
Experientially, right. But you're on track. Sattvic buddhi is where you want to sit and observe. And so all of you are, I think, aware of this now, right? Yeah. Any other obstacle or could you correlate these preparations to anything you had in sadhana? I think that's the best way. Pick one and work on it. For instance, that day you were saying, Kshitija, we were talking about pure heart. And you said, yeah, I start with pure heart, but then immediately an involvement happens, right? So that is the prerequisite of vairagya, right? So you can then think, why does that the initial stage of empathy coming, why does the involvement happen, right? So then that can be a motivation to say, well, this is a preliminary and to examine that. You can examine that in meditation, right? And it's a very, at one level, certain levels, it's a very rational process, right? It's the mind observing the mind, saying, okay, why does this happen? Right? If you're attached to some person, I find this to be a very useful exercise. You know from the Bhajagovinda and from your own experience that the body is not the true self, because as he says, yavat pavano nivasati dehe tavat prichati kushalam gehe. As long as the air is, the prana is in the body, people ask, as long as the prana is in the body, people ask, how are you doing well? Gatavati vayu deha paye. Once the vayu leaves the body, once the prana leaves, even the wife is afraid of the husband's body. Right? So then you can tell yourself, am I really attached or attracted to this person or to prana, which is just energy inside them, right? And so all we are is just prana, energy flowing through the mind, and this person has one set of stack of experiences, I have another stack of experiences, and so we are different. Right? How did these stack of experiences become my life? I'll give you an analogy. When you take these photos with cameras, nowadays you get a time stamp, date stamp on it, right? The apparatus by which we take photos is all the same. Something puts the stamp I on every frame, right? Then you collect all these photographs and one say, this is my life, right? And that is their life. But if you really think about it, there's no difference. If the I stamp was not there, right, there would be no problem. So then who is this I? That's what Sri Ramana Maharshi says. What is this I that put the stamp there on every experience? So that can be a useful thing to think about when you ponder attachment. What is this mind? What is this aspect of the mind that puts the I stamp? Ahankara. Again, Vedanta has an answer to everything. There are 4 parts. Manas takes in the impressions, imports the sensations, exports the sensations, right? Buddhi is just calmly observing everything. Chitta is this memory bank, your stack of pictures, right? There's a stack of pictures, but you put somehow uniquely that this happened to me, right? See how many of our actions are so defined by that, that feeling of I, right? So it happens to everyone. There's nothing to feel ashamed about. If you were treated badly as a kid on account of your color or your gender, you tend to be very sensitive about it when you encounter any new experience, right? We don't experience things blandly in a way. We color them with our observer status. Wouldn't you say? Even in the external world. So then that can give us some idea. Oh, maybe if I stand back and sit and look at the I itself in meditation, this could be very interesting, right?
Are you, well, is it possible in principle to see the I maker, or it's completely impossible the way, I don't know, I mean, isn't there an inherent trick in it, in the sense that you could not see yourself?
No, there isn't. Yes, that's a good point. Actually, it is not the kind of, there is no Gödel's incompleteness theorem. Yeah. It is because that I is a false I. And that is demonstrated, again, it's, they take the valid